coolersonsale.com here for a budget cooler durability test. When we ran this test before with the lifetime coolers, which were around $100, a lot of people asked about the durability. Can you sit on the lids? Are they going to cave in? Because I actually did sit on the lid and I noticed that the lid was caving in a little bit because these are not roto-molded cooler. Again, they are budget coolers. We decided to take all of the budget coolers that we have. We just wrapped up the ice retention test as well as a rolling test. I'll link to those in the description below. So just want to give you guys an idea of what they look like up close. If we sit on them, stand on them, etc., are the lids going to cave in? So without further ado, we will start with the Lifetime 28. First up is the Lifetime 28, hard handle that actually locks into place. So I feel like this is a pretty robust handle, very similar to the Grizzly, the Yeti, and many of the Igloo, many of the other roto-molded coolers. It feels just like a roto-molded cooler when you're carrying it. It locks into place. I can sit on this with no problem. It's such a small cooler that it's not caving in at all. It feels really good to sit on. I'll go ahead and stand on it for those guys that want to be using it as a casting platform. As you can see, the lid is not caving in whatsoever. The lid is attached. I mentioned that because on some of the wheeled coolers, the lid is just kind of has little pins on the back and it pops right out. So as you can see, this is pretty robust. And one thing that can be a little bit weird for people, when you have this thing loaded down with drinks and ice, it can get a little heavy to carry with just one. So you might want to lay this down and try to carry on the side if you're carrying with two people. Just a look at the Lifetime 28. Next, we will move on to the Igloo Bmx 25. Similar style to that Lifetime, but this does not lock in place, so you do have some movement across the top with the handle. Very robust lid. You can sit on this, stand on this, no problem. It holds really well for a $60 to $70 cooler. Pretty impressive. I'll stand on it in case you guys want to see for a polling platform. No caving in whatsoever. On the inside, the same situation. The lid is attached, so that doesn't come off. Overall, pretty robust cooler. One thing I will say, difference between this one and a roto-molded cooler, we dropped this off the back of the golf cart this morning, and I'm not sure how well that will come on camera, but you can see it's pretty scuffed up there, and you do get some scuffs there. So different than what you would experience on a roto-molded cooler, just getting that scrape from falling off the back of a golf cart from 3 feet high. Next up, we will go after the Igloo Bmx 52. This is a step larger than that one we were just reviewing. Same is true with this. This one actually has the handles that whip out, which is nice. I like these as opposed to the rope handles because you're not getting the swinging and when you're carrying with two people. So pretty robust handles. Sit and stand on this one, no problem whatsoever. Very, very robust lid on this. Stand on it as well. Inside is the same as the 25 that I just mentioned. The lid is attached, so you can move this around. Overall, very well built cooler for under $100. Next up, we'll go after the Igloo Latitude 60. This is definitely a budget cooler. I think this is around 50 bucks. I'll have the links to the description below. You can move this about, but be careful with some of these Igloos because, like I said, it's just a little bit of a notch of plastic in there for the hinge, and sometimes the lid can come flying off. I'll go ahead and try to sit on this. It holds me, but I can already feel it starting to cave in. So I think over time, a 200-pounder on the lid of this, definitely going to get some wear on that cooler. I'll go ahead and try to stand on it, although it's not, you can see it flexing right there. Look at my foot. You might be able to see that on camera. It's already flexing in. So keep that in mind if you plan to sit on this. I think over time you're going to wear through that. No latches on the front, which is different than the Bmx as well as the Lifetime, but it does open up, and you do have the handle for the wheels. You cannot open the, you can open the lid all the way with the handle up, which is different than some of the other wheeled coolers, which we'll get to next. Overall, I thought this was decent in terms of the durability of the handle as well as the wheels. It handled sand. I'll show that in a different video, but overall the wheels handled rugged terrain pretty well. Next up, we'll go over the Coleman. This is a 60 quart rolling cooler. Same style wheels that I just mentioned on that cooler, so you get a look at that. Handled semi-rugged terrain pretty well. I think that the handle on this is very sturdy. We were able to roll forward and backwards. No latches on the front, so it just opens. You cannot open the cooler all the way with the handle out. It has to go down in order for it to come all the way back. So keep that in mind if you're going to keep the handle up. You can sit on this, but it is not very durable, and this is actually one of the coolers I think that we had problems with, the lid kind of falling off. If there's any ice in there and you shake it, the lid will come detached from the cooler itself, so keep that in mind. Sit on it as well. Not as much of an indentation that we just experienced on the Latitude 60. I'll go ahead and stand on it to see if you guys can get an idea. You can definitely see the flexing on that. Look at the flexing on the top. Can you see that in the camera? So take a look at the flexing on the top. I definitely would not use this. It's a top heavy cooler for a casting platform, maybe to sit on it in a pinch, but again, I think if you got someone coming on and off of that cooler over time, that lid is definitely going to warp. Next up is the Island Breeze. This is a 60 quart cooler. I feel like the handle is the most robust of some of the coolers that we've tested in terms of the handle. The wheels, on the other hand, are much smaller. So we did a wheel test with this, and through the sand, they're almost useless. It's like dragging a dead weight. So keep that in mind. I'll show that in a different video. I'll link to that in the description below. No latches on the front of this cooler either. We'll open this up, and if you have the handle up, you can open the cooler all the way. The lid does open with the handle extended, and we'll go ahead and sit on this cooler. Same is true, a little bit of a flex, but actually more rigid than the other two that we have reviewed. I'll stand on it as well. Very top heavy because it's tall and thin, but you can see the flexing on the top of that lid, and I'm hearing some cracking. So I don't recommend doing that. And you might even be able to see some indentations from where I was just sitting on the lid of that. So definitely don't want to do that. This is the same situation with that lid that I mentioned, that it can pop off because all it is plastic popped in there. So there you go. Just an idea of what it looks like. They're just small little indentations. It's easy to get back on, but one of those things that can become cumbersome if you're constantly trying to get that lid to go back on there. That's all it takes to get back on there. Next up is the Igloo Max Cold Latitude 62. I think this is the most robust cooler from the outside, just because you actually get the handles in addition to the handle for wheeling, and this is the most firm of any that we've tested. Just in terms of how rigid it is back and forth. You cannot open the lid all the way with the handle extended, so keep that in mind. You have to put it down in order to open the lid all the way. On the front, no latches on the front, it just opens up, and this cooler is the same that I mentioned before. It does, the lid can pop off. We've had it happen a couple times. If you pick it up by the lid, which you shouldn't do, but we've done it a couple times moving them around, it will pop off. It goes back on relatively easy, just something to keep in mind. I thought that the wheels on this cooler were decent. They're larger size. They handled the sand halfway decent, not as good as the Trailmate, but pretty decent for sand. Pretty robust top of the cooler. Sitting on it is no problem. I get no indentation whatsoever sitting on it. Standing on it, it's the same. It's going to be a top heavy cooler, but no indentation. So we can stand on that no problem. It handles 200 plus pounds without a problem. You do have on the top of this cooler, as well as the other Latitude, an area to put a smartphone or a tablet or whatever to so that you can watch it or listen to music or whatever. It just kind of fits right in there. Just something to keep in mind. Overall, pretty decent cooler. It held ice really well. Last but not least is the Quantum 62, the best cooler that we tested in terms of ice retention. This was the champion of the budget cooler ice challenge. The best cooler in my opinion for overall, just not only just ice retention, but a very sturdy handle on the back and different style wheels. These are almost, they look like they're rubberized, but they're really not like you think they are. They are still kind of a hard plastic, but I thought they handled the asphalt as well as the sand pretty well. On the front, you can see that you have two rod holders that come off. You can actually take those rod holders off and put on cup holders, but no latches on the front to keep the cooler closed. On the inside, it is a different style lid. This is more attached than the others. You can just see that where it butts together, it's much tighter than the others. So it's a higher quality budget cooler. Here are those cup holders that I mentioned. We'll go ahead and sit on this. The most robust budget cooler that I've sat on aside from the Igloo Bmx. I'll go ahead and stand on it, see if we can get some flex out of it. No, hardly any flex. So this is definitely the most robust budget cooler out there. It still is relatively top heavy for cooler, so I wouldn't recommend using it as a casting platform. But I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what the budget coolers look like in terms of durability, because again, many of you are asking in regards to the Lifetime cooler. I know that the 55 definitely had some indentation. Last but not least, which is not in the shot right now, we'll move over and check out the Lifetime 77 just to see if we get that same flex that we got out of the 55. The Lifetime 77, rope handles on the side like many other roto molded coolers. Just keep in mind when you're carrying this with two people, you're going to get a little bit of swing. You have latches on the front as well as a spot to lock the cooler if you want to drop a padlock or you know, any kind of lock through there to lock it. Sitting on the cooler is a drastic improvement from the 55 quart. As you'll remember from the 55 quart, we had a little bit of caving in on that lid. This is a wider surface area and no problem whatsoever sitting on this lid. I'll go ahead and stand on it so you can see if there's any indentation, but very, very minor indentation, if any at all. I mean, I can stand on this, walk on this, and I feel very, very good on that. Like I said, is a drastic improvement from the 55 quart, which maybe they've redesigned as well. On the inside, not a whole lot to talk about. The lid is attached with a rod, so it's not going to come out. Very robust cooler, and for the price, roughly I think 130 bucks, 150 bucks, something like that. I'll link the actual price in the description below, but overall a really well built cooler.